Well, happy Friday, everybody. We've come to the end of a week. I hope it's really been a blessed one for you and that you're excited about celebrating Jesus this coming Sunday. And I encourage you to be in church here at First Baptist and invite people to come with you. Our Monisa and I and our friends are still in Budapest, flying home Sunday, so you keep praying for us. And if you haven't done so already, follow me on Instagram at the address here on the screen, and you can see some of the photographs I've posted from our vacation. Well, today we are in the 3rd chapter of Ephesians, and Paul is writing this letter while he's in prison. I think he was in prison in Rome. We can't say that definitively, but we know he was under arrest and in chains and so on. No, he alludes to it in chapter 3, verse 1, where he says, I, Paul, the prisoner of Christ Jesus for the sake of the Gentiles. What he means there is taking the gospel to the Gentiles, not just to the Jews, taking it beyond just Israel and the Middle East, but to other nations. He's been arrested for that, and he also alludes to it in the last chapter, which we'll look at next week. But in chapter 6, verse 20, he says, for which I am an ambassador in chains. So an ambassador representing Jesus and the gospel, and because of that, he's in chains. He's under arrest. Now, the reason I think he was in Rome when he writes this letter is he, as we said earlier in the week, he started the church in Ephesus on his 3rd missionary journey. And then after that, according to the book of Acts, he traveled to Jerusalem. And it was in Jerusalem he was arrested and would spend the next 2+ years being transported from Jerusalem to Rome for trial. And so he was in prison for an extended period of time in the Middle East, eventually in Rome. So could he have technically written this when he was in prison somewhere in the Middle East? Yes. But the most likely scenario is, based on other things in here, that he wrote it while he was under arrest for his first imprisonment in Rome. So I share all that, not just to give you that information, but to help you appreciate Paul's attitude, because I think it speaks to us about the attitude we need to have when we're going through challenging times. In chapter 3, look with me at verse 13. He's talking to these Ephesians and says, therefore, I ask you not to lose heart at my tribulations on your behalf. He says, I don't want you to be discouraged because of the tribulations I'm experiencing. In other words, I don't want you to be all worried and discouraged and despondent in your walk with God because I'm under arrest, because I am in prison, if you will. And then in verse 14, he said, for this reason I bow my knees before the Father. He says, because I'm concerned about you being discouraged in your faith because of my predicament, I get on my knees and I pray for you. Think about that. He's in jail, facing trial for his faith, and he's praying for the Ephesian believers that they will not be discouraged in their faith because of what has happened to him. Wow. Just think about that for a moment. And then also in verse 16, he says that he would grant you, that God would grant you, the Ephesians, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man. Not only was he praying for them not to be discouraged, he was praying that on the inside they would be spiritually strong. He wanted them to grow and to be faithful and to be mighty in faith, to be filled with the Spirit, to be strong in their walk with Jesus. And he's in prison when he's praying this. He's in prison when he writes this letter to them to instruct them, to teach them, to correct them, to encourage them, to bless them. What an attitude. What would my attitude be if I was in a similar situation? I don't know. I've never been in a situation Paul was in. I've been in some challenging situations. I imagine you have as well. Sometimes I've handled those really well, and sometimes I haven't. But I think what he's teaching us here, showing us by his own example, is what we should strive for when we're going through difficult times, challenging times. And the takeaway for me is that Paul did not sit around and mope in self-pity. His focus was on the Lord and the Lord's people. And other verses also being a witness, sharing the gospel. So his focus was on the Lord and other people, the spiritual strength of believers and the salvation of the lost. That's where he kept his focus. And I think that's good advice for us. It doesn't mean that we ignore our reality, that we don't talk about our reality, but our reality is more than just being in a hard situation. Our reality is, even in those circumstances, we're still children of God. And we still have all the promises of God, the inheritance waiting for us. We are still his ambassadors who are to be speaking on his behalf. We are still to love and care about others. We are to never get to the point where we're so consumed with self and personal realities that we forget to look up to God and out at other people and care for them. So that's encouraging to me. I do want to wish all the dads watching this happy Father's Day, since I won't be with you at First Baptist on Sunday. We are still going to have our drawings like we've done in recent years and give away some prizes to fathers in each of the 3 worship services. But I just want to take this moment to wish all the guys, all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. God bless you. I love you. Look forward to being with you the following Sunday. And then also Monday with another devotion as we continue our journey through the book of Ephesians. We'll be in chapter 4. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day.